Now, this is our leadership session. We're going to talk about leadership development, and I'm very excited about having here Jaideep Prabhu, professor of marketing at the University of Cambridge. So someone who really knows how we're supposed to do our jobs as marketers. So a warm welcome, Jaideep.
Thanks, Jean-Laurent.
Jaideep, we've asked you to join us today as you've done a lot of research and written a really interesting book on Jugaad innovation. So before we dive into that, tell us, how does one become professor of marketing at Cambridge and then end up investigating the Indian concept of Jugaad innovation?
Well, I haven't been at Cambridge all my life. I'm there now. But I grew up in India. The first 20 years of my life was spent there. And this was a time when the economy was closed and there were real resource constraints. So I had a sort of daily familiarity with Jugaad at that time. But then I left India. I came west. I was in the US. I did a PhD in business. And then I built an academic career. I was in the Netherlands and now in the UK. And for most of my career, I've studied innovation. And the first part of it, I studied innovation in large Western corporations.
Right.
Because that's where people felt innovation was done. But more recently, I've turned my attention to emerging markets. I was intrigued by the fact that large Western multinationals were starting to do innovation and R&D in places like China and India. So I visited China and made lots of trips to India. I started studying what was happening in Africa, Latin America, and so forth. And particularly in India, I was quite surprised at what I found. In contrast to the West, where you have more structured R&D, bigger budgets generally, and it's people who are in white suits who do the innovation, in India, there were three things that seemed distinctive. People were very frugal. There was an emphasis in doing more with less. They were very flexible in their approach, very good at improvising. They may have a plan, but they would switch, so very agile. And a lot of the solutions were inclusive. They were trying to get people outside the formal economy into the formal economy. And when I talked to people in India and asked them how they would describe this frugal, flexible, inclusive approach, very often they would use this word Jugaad that I was familiar with.
So that's where it's coming from.
Yeah. That's where it's coming from. And they would say Jugaad innovation. So it's not just cutting corners and making do, but it's innovating, using that ingenuity in a resource-constrained environment to do more with less and make an impact.
Okay, so I say that most of the people watching know all about resource constraint. Firstly, because about 80% of our business is in D&E, and therefore many of our own consumers have limited resources themselves, be it money, water, education, sanitation, you name it. But also, household care being a small category with a big ambition, limited budgets, we know it's an eternal challenge to maximize the impact of our own activities. After we connected for the first time, we sent you some information on household care and our current plans and future activities. Jaideep, what is your observation about the type of plans which we are developing and any good tip and advice for us on the way?
I was fascinated to read about what you're doing. It was really interesting. And to me, it seemed like you guys are there. You're at the heart of Jugaad and the Jugaad innovation revolution and the frugal innovation revolution on many different levels. So for instance, it's clear that you have recognized the opportunity. There's something like 4 billion people around the world, many in Africa and Asia, but elsewhere also, who are outside the formal economy. That's more than half the world's population. And it's a challenge, but also a huge opportunity because this is a huge, relatively untapped market. And I think your own penetration is relatively small in these sectors. So huge growth potential. You've recognized that opportunity. But there are also challenges, and you know those challenges. I think those are lived challenges for you. You just explained some around resource constraints. So for instance, there's the famous last mile problem. Many of these customers are in remote places where infrastructure is bad. It's very expensive to reach them, but they're also low income, so the margins are low. So how do you square that circle? How do you make a profit in these costly environments and these remote places? And so I think you're very aware of that challenge. There's also a behavioral shift that has to take place. Many of these people use traditional solutions, and now they have to move to branded solutions. That's a little tricky to do, so that's a challenge. And then there's a sustainability challenge. How do you achieve this growth, but with a minimal environmental negative impact? So you're well aware of the opportunity and the challenge, and I think you're well on the way to developing solutions at a very comprehensive level. So for instance, you are obviously thinking about frugal innovation around the product. About doing good enough products, getting more for less for your end customer. but you're also thinking about packaging and making good use of materials and again doing good enough packaging. I think you're also going beyond just the product and the packaging. You're thinking about the business models. You're thinking about, for instance, a last mile problem and doing manufacturing close to the customer or involving the customer, involving local communities in the distribution of the product. So you've gone very far with the business model. I was impressed you're thinking about the behavior change issues and how you can nudge these customers out of traditional practices into branded practices. And finally, I think most impressive, you're thinking about the leadership issues. You're thinking about the cultural issues within Unilever, within your group and within household care. Particularly how you get your own employees to live and to breathe this kind of mindset of doing more with less, of putting themselves in the place of the customers who have very difficult circumstances and taking action. So I'm really impressed.
So if you had to be a little critical, Jaideep, and give us a bit of encouragement of what more we could do on the way, what would you say?
So, in a way, I feel that your guys, particularly in emerging markets, developing countries, are living this. They're aware of the situation, and to tell them about Jugaad is a bit like teaching your grandmother to suck eggs. They know how to do this kind of thing, right? They know about resource constraints and they know about the solutions. I think where the lesson or the message of our book can be quite provocative is to your colleagues in the West, in less resource constrained environments. Now, I would make a case for why these principles that we've explored in this book apply not only in emerging markets, but also in developed markets. Well, first of all, I think we know there are resource constraints even in the West. Particularly after the financial crisis, we know there are constraints on household budgets, on government budgets, and so forth. There are constraints on the natural resources that we can tap into. But I think there's also a positive set of drivers driving frugal innovation in the West. There's a democratization of the means to innovation in the West. We have now access to high-speed computing very cheap. We have great devices like smartphones that we can use for this purpose. We have social media. We have access to 3D printers. So, a small team with limited resources can do a lot more these days in the West. So I think a lot of these lessons from emerging markets apply back to the West. In the book, through the stories and the narratives of people, we extract 6 principles which we think are relevant. So let me just go over some of these principles. The first principle we say is find opportunity in adversity. And we might think in the West we don't face adversity, but there are people who face adversity. So understanding that and trying to empathize with those people and then find opportunities in that, I think, is a good principle. A second principle we identify is thinking and acting flexibly. And I think this is particularly challenging, especially if you've had more structured approaches to innovation and strict process. I think sometimes coming out of your comfort zone is a little difficult, but I think that's something where we have to press our colleagues in the West sometimes. Some other principles, keep it simple. This can be difficult in the West, where often it's technology push and we're trying to add more features, but maybe the customer doesn't want them. And maybe adding features will make it unnecessarily expensive or complicated to use. So keeping the solution simple might be a good principle to follow. Get more with less, that's another principle. I think that's always useful and we can always find ways to do more with less and stimulate our ingenuity. The fifth principle that we have is include the margin. And this is particularly powerful in emerging markets. As I said, a lot of people are outside the formal economy and you can bring them in. But even in the West, we have increasing numbers of people who are unemployed, low income. People are outside the banking system sometimes in a cash economy. How can we help these people, include them not only as consumers, but also as employees? And the final principle, which we think is really important, is follow your heart. You have to be passionate about this. In the resource-constrained environments of emerging markets, it's really hard to make these things work. And so you've got to be passionate, you've got to believe in it, you've got to follow your gut sometimes and take risks. I think that's true in the West too. So that would be my sort of challenge. And I think this is where you can perhaps push some of your colleagues.
Thank you, Jaideep. And you have been studying a few Western-based companies, mainly American-based, if I've read your book correctly. So who's leading the way and what can we learn from them?
There are American companies, so some of the ones we studied were people like GE and so forth, IBM, and we can list several. But in a way, I think European countries are in a way at the forefront. For many reasons, I think. I think perhaps they feel the resource constraint more. perhaps, post-financial crisis in particular, but also in many ways they're closer to emerging economies, so they operate perhaps closer to those markets, and their home markets are smaller in some cases. So, we have another book to follow this one, where we're focusing on frugal innovation in the West.
All right.
And many of the companies we highlight at the forefront, well, you'll be pleased to know Unilever. I really believe Unilever is at the forefront. Your sustainable living plan is a very bold attempt to not only grow as a company, but do it sustainably.
Yep.
And to do that, you have to do frugal innovation. You have to find ways to do more with less resource, including natural resource. Siemens is an example of a company. Another company that does a lot in this frugal innovation space is Renault Nissan.
Right.
In fact, Carlos Ghosn, the CEO, was someone who some time ago identified frugal engineering as the way forward. This was partly because Renault engaged with Eastern Europe,
yeah,
and they developed cars for the Eastern European market, which they then found was selling very well in Western, yeah, Europe. And then they've tried the same thing with emerging markets such as India. So that's another company. Some of the non-product companies, financial services companies, for instance, Barclays Bank, yeah, they're thinking about how they can get customers to be more frugal, to save, for instance, and to do behavior change there, where people were sort of, let's say, addicted to credit, and that's been damaging to themselves and the economy. So how can they save more and be frugal in that way? So it's really a range of companies. Some of the retailers are doing, yeah, this.
For example, yeah.
M&S is an example,
okay,
or
yeah,
Kingfisher,
okay,
who own, yeah, B&Q, because often, or IKEA, because often they depend crucially on raw materials like wood. That's a non-renewable resource in a way, and they have to manage for their own strategic purposes that supply and make sure that that's a renewable source. Yeah. So they have to think very fundamentally about sustainability and frugality and preserving resources and doing more with less. And it's very interesting how they've made that central to their strategy, a bit like Unilever has done. And I think you have several of these companies in different sectors now pushing the envelope on frugal innovation. And I believe that many others will follow.
I love the way by which you're linking the micro aspect of Jugaad, of frugality to the consumer and the poor, with the macro aspect of Jugaad around frugality for the planet and actually the state we are in terms of resource constraints. Right?
And this is at the heart of the Unilever Sustainable Living Plan. It's very much the same kind of thing, thinking about micro behaviors, yeah, on the part of your suppliers, yourself, and your customers, yeah, with the planetary issues, which are very real and which we are facing. So, I'd like to think that we are in sync here with what you guys are doing as well.
Yeah. Follow your heart, guys. I think this is really inspiring. I recommend you all to read Jaideep's book. For that reason, we're giving everyone who submitted a Chinese star on an ugly dog this fantastic book, which will get to you in the next week. For anyone else, just put the book on your birthday list. So Jaideep, thank you very much. Thank you for coming. We could talk a lot longer on the subject. Do let us know your thoughts on the video by posting in the House of HHC group with the hashtag ChineLeadership. So thanks, Jaideep.
Thanks, Jonathan.
It was a pleasure to have you.
Likewise.